El Sari, where I live, around 7:30, the villagers were stirred by the discovery of the lifeless body of a woman in the government-owned cocoa plantation. At that time, I intended to go to school, but ended up joining a group of villagers rushing to see what had happened. On the way, police cars and the wailing sirens of ambulances could be seen passing by us. Sure enough, when we arrived there, the body of a woman wearing a floral-patterned house dress was hanging with a plastic rope tied around her neck on one of the rambutan trees, right in front of the entrance to the plantation. For the first time, witnessing such a scene sent shivers down my spine, and I turned my face away. Fortunately, I didn't get to see the face of the deceased woman because I viewed it from the side, where her face was covered by thick, long hair. Who? Astagfirullah, that's Ratmi, one of the villagers answered amidst the crowd's questioning. It turned out to be Ratmi's body. Her house was in the same neighborhood, RRT, as mine, and I always passed by it on my way home from religious study sessions. "Oh, this is so pitiful, just bring her down," said one of the villagers. But apparently the villagers who wanted to bring Ratmi's body down were prevented by the police, and I didn't quite understand the reason. Only a few leather-jacketed individuals seemed busy, some taking photos of Ratmi's body, others combing the surrounding area. After about 5 minutes, the police, assisted by some villagers, finally brought down the body. As soon as the body was placed on the ground, the sounds of a man and a woman crying could be heard from a distance. Apparently, it was Bang Ratmo, her husband, and Nenek Isur, her mother-in-law. They both ran through the crowd, then hugged Ratmi's lifeless and stiff body. A terrifying yet poignant atmosphere immediately enveloped the scene. There was a debate when Ratmi's body was about to be placed in the body bag by the police. Bang Ratmo refused to let his wife's body be taken to the hospital for an autopsy. Some people, considered elders in our village, also sided with Bang Ratmo. Autopsy, or treating a deceased person by cutting them, would only hurt their soul in the afterlife. That's what our village's belief was. Besides, isn't autopsy not allowed in our religion? Moreover, it would require a lot of money, which Bang Ratmo certainly didn't have. After deliberation and mutual agreement, the police finally handed over Ratmi's body entirely to the family without undergoing any process, with the pure assumption of suicide. Her body was wrapped in several side cloths, a piece of batik-patterned cloth of considerable length. Assisted by 2 villagers, the body was then taken home for burial. The crowd of villagers was still not dispersing. In fact, more people arrived, and conversations with the potential to turn into petty gossip began to be heard. Unfortunately, when I checked the time and saw that it was already 8:30, I realized I was late for school. In the evening, after I finished my religious studies around 8 o'clock and joined the neighborhood watch with the fathers, Bang Usman, the person who first discovered Ratmi's body, was there. With other kids, I squatted down attentively to listen to the conversation. According to Kang Usman's story, in the early hours around 2 a.m., he woke up for the Tahajjud prayer. In a half-conscious state, he lit a kretek cigarette to fend off sleepiness. As Bang Usman headed to the kitchen to make coffee, faint footsteps could be heard from outside. Bang Usman was puzzled, hearing someone walking in the middle of the night like that. He initially assumed it might be a thief and thought about checking it out. However, he abandoned the idea because he remembered it was a Friday night. According to local stories, the cocoa plantation had many ghosts. Indeed, it was said that part of this cocoa plantation used to be a mass grave for unidentified victims of massacres during the era of President Suharto. Bang Usman's house happened to be right across the road from the entrance to the plantation. Perhaps out of fear, Bang Usman returned to bed, and his planned Tahajjud prayer was cancelled. Around 4 a.m., he was awakened again by the call to prayer. Despite the remnants of fear, still wearing a sarong, he intended to open the curtains and windows of his house. When he opened the curtains, something peculiar caught his eye across the street. It looked like a heap of hanging sacks, according to Kang Usman at that time. His vision was still imperfect because it was still pitch dark. For some unknown reason, Bang Usman took a flashlight and decided to check it out. From the front porch, he aimed the flashlight towards the plantation, and to his shock, the light illuminated a terrifying face with bulging eyes and a protruding tongue. Even small blue veins adorned the frightening face. Instantly, Bang Usman was flustered upon realizing that the sight he was witnessing was a hanging female body. He tried to call his wife, but no sound came out. My body was sweating. My heart was pounding so fast that I thought it would burst at that moment. Till now I still see Ratmi's face in my head, said Bang Usman to us, who were listening. According to Bang Usman, who was half conscious due to sheer terror, he tried to run towards his house to call his wife, without informing her about what had happened. Half yelling, he instructed his wife to summon the village head to their house. "Are you not scared now, man? Usually, the spirit of someone who dies in a place becomes a wandering ghost. Especially that, right across from your house. Gives me the chills," said one of Bang Usman's friends. "I am scared. That's why my wife and I are temporarily staying at my in-laws' house." So went the conversation at the neighborhood watch post, and eventually we all dispersed after listening to Kang Usman. Certainly with pale faces after hearing the chilling story, everyone who heard Kang Usman's tale tonight might have nightmares. Arriving home, my parents continued discussing Tehratmi's situation. I felt uneasy, torn between fear and curiosity. Eventually, I joined in with them, unwillingly knowing that tonight's bedtime story would be very haunting. My father, who participated in the condolence visit to Tehratmi's house, narrated that the body found in the morning wasn't immediately buried, as they had to wait for Tehratmi's family to arrive. Tehratmi's mother was out of town, and unfortunately, Tehratmi's family, including her mother, was only informed after midday. The villagers, including the village head, couldn't make a decision because they could hear Tehratmi's mother crying on the phone, pleading not to bury her daughter before she arrived. She expressed her desire to see her daughter's face one last time. As evening approached, Tehratmi's mother had not yet arrived, even though the sky in Tegalsari village had started to darken, covered by clouds. Signs of rain were apparent. A small drizzle had been falling and stopping intermittently. Actually, all the villagers feel sorry for Ratmi's body, but it would be even more pitiful if her mother couldn't see her daughter's face one last time, my father said. Around 6:30 in the evening, when the drizzle intensified, Tehratmi's family finally arrived. The sounds of sobbing and crying resumed amid the rain. After an agreement with Bang Ratmo, Tehratmi's funeral would take place after the Maghrib prayer. The rain still hadn't stopped, but my father insisted that they couldn't wait until the next day to bury Tehratmi. The journey to the public cemetery was quite far, crossing fields and a river. Moreover, according to the report from someone who dug the grave that afternoon, the pit was now filled with water. Just before 7:30, the rain began to subside, although it didn't completely stop as there was still a drizzle. Finally, Bang Ratmo suggested burying his wife in his own garden, which was not too far away. He mentioned that the river had overflowed due to the rain, making it difficult to cross. That night, with my father also accompanying them, Tehratmi's body was carried on a stretcher, illuminated by a Petromax lamp, towards the garden for burial. was hastily prepared, only dug after the body arrived. According to my father, it was the longest burial process he had ever attended. Finally, that night, the burial was completed, and Teratmi's body was now buried beneath the ground. However, the cries of her mother continued to be heard, whether mourning her daughter's departure or lamenting the tragic fate her daughter had to endure. After Teratmi's death, many questions likely arose in the hearts of the villagers. What was the chronology of her death? And of course, what drove her to take such a drastic step in ending her life? Who were listening?